VRBO suspended one of my listings, so that was a real fun email to get. And today I'm going to tell you what happened, how I dealt with it, and why it is very important to be on multiple platforms and not just pigeonhole yourself into whatever your favorite place to rent is. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Airbnb ABCs. As I have told you guys many times in this channel, even though it's called Airbnb ABCs, we get the majority of our bookings on VRBO. We have been that way for the longest time. A lot of people ask me, how do I get more bookings on VRBO? And a lot of times I have some guesses and I don't really know exactly how we got to where we are, but we get the majority of our bookings from VRBO, probably at least 70 to 80% of them. And so when I got an email at 8-ish p.m., which is when these people tend to hit you with this stuff, right when you're like done with your day, you're ready to relax, I got hit with a email that said that our property, one of our properties, had been temporarily suspended for a marketplace violation. And it said, call XYZ number to find out more. And so I have no idea at this point what is going on, because these listings have been up for years. There hasn't been any problems, and I have no idea what the marketplace violation is. And so the backstory to this is that we had a guest that had a booking for like 10 days. It was a very long stay, and pretty much from the moment that they got to the cabin, they started to complain about various things. And we typically don't get this. And when we are running our business with our Airbnb, our VRBO properties, our short-term rentals, we have prided ourselves on having very good properties, very good systems, and making sure that people have a very good time at our places. We try to put out a very high-end product, a premier product. It's not filled with a bunch of over-the-top amenities that you see in a lot of these other YouTube channels where they're putting in just all sorts of wild stuff. These are solid Gatlinburg Airbnb cabins that have all the things that people want. Either mountain views, hot tubs, decks. They look like a cabin. They are tight. They're exactly what it should be. They're clean and everything works. These folks immediately started complaining about that the air conditioning could not be set below 68 degrees. And, they were saying, well, how are we supposed to keep cool in this cabin if we can't set the air below 68 degrees? And we set that lock because we don't want people, beating up on the air conditioning, setting it at 60 degrees when it is 90 out. And, and it was pretty mild out when these folks were here. This wasn't too terribly long ago. And I was like, it just does not go below 68. That is just it. And so they wanted to open the windows. And I said, yeah, go ahead and open the window if you want. Then they started to complain that there were no screens in the window. And there are people out there that may not like that there are no screens in the windows. We don't leave screens in the windows because they're a maintenance nightmare. They get dirty constantly. They get torn. They get beat up. People beat them up. And in my opinion, they block the views. And really, we don't want the windows open a lot. That lets in a lot more dust and dirt, things that our cleaners have to clean up. And so we don't have screens in there. You may like that, you may not, but that's the way that we run things. Window screens are not fall protection, so they don't offer any sort of safety. And so we take them out to minimize things that we have to deal with. So they weren't happy with that. And then they said that the next morning there was construction noise. There was backup alarms going off, and they weren't happy with that either. I guess there was road construction down the road. Our cleaners didn't say anything about it. When we asked them, they said, we're not sure what they were talking about. But these folks were simply not happy with their stay. And one of the biggest things that we want is for people to be happy with their stay. And also, I don't feel like listening to folks whine about every little thing that they can possibly pick apart in one of our cabins for an entire, 10 days. And they've only been there one night. And so we said, you know what? You're not happy with your vacation. We want you to be happy. I want my sanity for a week. If you all want to find a different place to stay, we will give you a full and complete refund. We're not even going to charge you for the night that you stayed. We just want to get you down the road. We want you to be happy, and I want to be happy. And that is the way I typically handle things like this. When people are just right off the bat dissatisfied with everything, get them out of there so you don't have to deal with them. That may not be the way that you like to do it, but that is the way I like to do it, and that's the way I like to recommend people do it, because it maintains your sanity and it just gets, problematic people out of your life, which a lot of times paying people to go away is not necessarily a bad thing. So I said, listen, if you're not happy with it, call up VRBO, initiate a cancellation. I will approve it. I will give you a full refund. I put it in the notes. I said, you got it right here on in the messenger on VRBO. and it will be down the road. So they figured out some place to go, and in the meantime, I'm a very busy person. I have 5 different properties between a family farm, between my primary residence, my 3 Airbnbs, 3 kids, playing select sports, full-time job. I'm a busy guy, so I'm running around. So I get a phone call from VRBO while I'm driving on the interstate and taking one of my kids to baseball practice, and they said that this guest wants to cancel the reservation. They said you would give them a full refund. I said that is absolutely correct. They're like, can we authorize us to do this? And I said, yeah, that's fine. I said, but before we do that, can you guarantee me that there will be no penalty on my part, that the guest initiated this, and that there won't be anything that affects me in the algorithm or anything? And the customer service rep said, yes. I said, then it's approved, and I thought that everything was done from there. Fast forward 2 or 3 days, and I get this suspension email. And so I call them up and I say, what is going on with this? And this is where I like to tell folks, you are going to be madder than hell, just like I was. Could not have been more upset because this was something that was being done to me that was wrong. It just wasn't the correct thing that should have been happening. But I try to be as polite as I can with the customer service representatives. They said that, yeah, it looks like we marked this, that you initiated the cancellation. And when I went back into my VRBO account, it said that I had initiated the cancellation. I said, well, that's not the case. Take a look at it. I want the waiver, and I want my property to be unsuspended as soon as it possibly could. And so they said, yeah. So I didn't hear anything from them for a day or two. And this is typically the way that these things take, either with Airbnb or VRBO. Nothing gets resolved immediately, which I think is kind of bullcrap, but it's just the way that it goes. A couple days later, I called back and I said, what is going on with this? Why haven't I received anything? And they said, you're going to get your cancellation waiver. We've, looked at it. The people that they escalated it to, which is always something that you have to deal with, is an escalation of sorts, which I guess they move it to some other department. And they said that you're going to be receiving an email about that. And I did receive that email that said that there would be a waiver for no penalty or whatever, which it doesn't make any sense at all that I needed a waiver because the guest initiated the cancellation and not me. But then it still took about 12 to 24 hours for our property to come back up on their system for it to be viewable, because when you are suspended, your property is gone from their website. You still keep all of your listings, but you can't search for it. They can't book it. When you look at your calendar, it just says that this property is inactive. And so it took a while. So even though I did everything right, there was some sort of error on their part, which happens in these gigantic corporations. And I was essentially penalized for 3 or 4 days for something that that wasn't just and didn't really affect me at all. Now, you can get mad about this. I can be mad about it, or you can just, accept it, get on with it, and move forward, which is, kind of what I choose to deal with these things. And so that leads me to my final point in this video is that you all need to have the widest possible net that is getting good bookings for your properties. And so I see a lot of folks on a lot of different websites, a lot of owners groups talking about how they never would use Airbnb. They've been with VRBO forever. They have always used VRBO. They hear of nothing but problems with Airbnb. They hear of nothing but problems with Airbnb. And if we had only had our properties listed with VRBO, that could have been shut down, and that could have been our only source of bookings for this property, just completely locked out. It was nothing that I did wrong. It was either a miscommunication or an error or just some sort of system problem, which VRBO has system problems on a fairly regular basis. And so that was just a 7-day temporary suspension for this particular one. I've heard of people getting locked out of their accounts for much longer, for a month or more, depending on what happens. And that would just affected one property. If this would have been an across-the-board account issue, that could have locked me out of all of my properties. So having my my listings also on Airbnb, having a direct booking website, and having them listed on Google Vacation Rentals is a big backup plan for if your main booking platform flakes on you, or they do something, or something actually does happen that is, a punishable offense, and they, do that against you. You still can book them on other places as you work through that, because sometimes things happen. You get a suspension or whatever, and it may be, completely unintentional. and you can get that fixed, but you still have to deal with that problem. You can still rent them out on another place. So if you love VRBO, or you love Airbnb, or you love direct bookings, or whatever it is that you are in love with, be sure that you are on as many quality platforms as you can. And for my opinion, a direct booking website, Google Vacation Rentals, Airbnb, and VRBO are your highest quality platforms. Booking.com is always out there as one of them, and I never hear of anyone having any good interactions with Booking.com with their guests. It just does not seem to be a platform that's on the level of Airbnb and VRBO at this time. So guys, that is how my listing got suspended. That is how I dealt with it, and that is how I keep myself diversified so that I don't find myself pigeonholed and unable to take any bookings or make any money on all of these properties that I have that, we need to make money on to cover all of our expenses. So if you got some value out of this, hit that like button for me. Subscribe down below to hear everything that I have to say about Airbnb, VRBO, and short-term rentals. I appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you in the next one.